Tae-sung wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished loading the last cargo container onto the transport ship. His back ached, his arms felt like lead, and all he wanted was to get home and sleep. The spaceport on New Hyundai was always busy, with ships coming and going at all hours. Hundreds of different aliens walked through the docks every day, speaking languages he didn't understand and hauling goods from across the galaxy. He was just a cargo hauler, nothing special. He moved boxes, loaded ships, and collected his pay every week. It was honest work, and it kept him fed. That was enough. The main corridors were packed with people heading home after their shifts, so Tae-sung took his usual shortcut through the lower maintenance tunnels. Most workers avoided these tunnels because they were dark and smelled like old metal and fuel. But they cut 15 minutes off his walk home. He knew every turn and every flickering light panel. Halfway through the tunnel, he heard something that made him stop. It was a sound that didn't belong there. A crying sound. A child's crying. Tae-sung's tired brain tried to make sense of it. Children didn't come down to the maintenance tunnels. They shouldn't be anywhere near this part of the station. He stood still and listened. There it was again, but quieter now, more desperate. Two voices, not one. He ran toward the sound, his exhaustion forgotten. The tunnel curved ahead, and as he rounded the corner, he saw why the passage was so dark. A section of the ceiling had collapsed. Metal beams and broken panels covered the floor. Dust still hung in the air. The emergency lights were flashing red, and a computerized voice was repeating a warning that he'd learned to ignore over the years. But this time the warning was real. Secondary collapse imminent. Evacuate immediately. Under the twisted metal, he saw them. Two small figures with skin that seemed to glow softly even in the dim light. Their skin looked like it was made of colored glass, refracting the emergency lights into gentle rainbows. They were aliens, but they were children. Young children. Maybe 5 or 6 years old, though it was hard to tell with alien species. One had her leg trapped under a heavy beam. The other was trying to pull her sister free, crying and calling out in a language Tae-sung didn't know. The tunnel shook. More dust fell from the ceiling. Tae-sung looked back the way he'd come. The smart thing would be to run, get help, let the emergency teams handle it. They had equipment. They had training. He was just a cargo hauler, but the emergency teams wouldn't get here in time. He could hear the metal groaning above them. Another collapse was coming. Minutes, maybe seconds away. He ran forward and knelt beside the girls. They looked at him with wide eyes, terrified of this strange alien with soft skin and round eyes. He pointed to himself. "I'm here to help," he said slowly, even though they couldn't understand his words. He hoped his tone would be enough. The beam pinning the smaller girl's leg was massive. It would normally take 3 men and a power lift to move it. Tae-sung grabbed it and pulled. It didn't budge. He tried again, planting his feet and putting his whole back into it. The beam shifted slightly, just an inch. The girl cried out. Whether in pain or hope, he couldn't tell. His hands were already bleeding from the sharp edges of the metal. The beam was hot, probably from some broken power line. He could smell his own skin burning where he gripped it. None of that mattered. He thought about his mother, who used to tell him that a person's worth wasn't measured in what they had, but in what they'd give away. He thought about all the times he'd walked past people who needed help, telling himself someone else would handle it. Not this time. He wedged a piece of broken pipe under the beam as a lever. His arms screamed in protest, muscles tearing, but the beam lifted. 2 inches, 3. The older sister understood and pulled her sibling free. The moment the injured girl was clear, Tae-sung's strength gave out and the beam crashed back down. The tunnel shook violently. A new section of ceiling began to crack above them. Tae-sung didn't think. He grabbed both girls, one under each arm, and ran. They were lighter than he expected, their bodies delicate like bird bones. Behind them, he heard the thunderous crash of the ceiling caving in. The whole tunnel was coming down. He ran faster than he'd ever run in his life. His lungs burned. His vision blurred. The girls clutched at his shirt, burying their faces against his chest. The computerized warning voice had stopped. That was bad. That meant the system had given up on warning people and was just documenting the disaster. Ahead, he saw light. The exit to the main corridor. He pushed his legs harder, knowing he wouldn't make it, knowing the collapse was right behind them, knowing he was going to die in this stupid tunnel with 2 alien children he didn't even know. He dove through the doorway as the tunnel behind him filled with fire and debris. Emergency doors slammed shut. the station's last defense against the destruction spreading. Taesung hit the ground hard, rolling to protect the girls. They tumbled across the clean floor of the main corridor, where shocked station workers jumped back in surprise. For a moment, Taesung just lay there, breathing hard, his whole body shaking. The girls were crying but alive. They had cuts and bruises, but nothing that looked life-threatening. He'd done it. Somehow, impossibly, he'd done it. Station security arrived within minutes, followed by medical teams. They took the girls from Taesung's arms, scanning them with medical devices and speaking in calm, professional tones. Someone tried to scan Taesung too, but he waved them away. "Take care of the kids first," he said. "I'm fine." He wasn't fine. His hands were burned and bleeding. His shoulders felt dislocated. Every breath hurt. But the girls were safe, and that was what mattered. A security officer asked him questions. What happened? How did he find them? Did he know their family? Taesung answered as best he could, his voice hoarse from the smoke he'd breathed. He gave them his name and his apartment number in case the family wanted to thank him or something. Then he asked if he could go home. The officer looked surprised that he wanted to leave, but nodded. "You're a hero," the officer said. "You know that, right?" Taesung shook his head. "I'm just a cargo hauler who took a shortcut." He walked home slowly, his whole body aching. His shift supervisor would probably yell at him tomorrow for the destroyed tunnel, even though it wasn't his fault. He'd need to file an incident report. His burned hands would need time to heal. Just another complication in an already complicated life. When he finally reached his small apartment, he showered, bandaged his hands as best he could, and collapsed into bed. As he drifted off to sleep, he wondered briefly about those two little girls. Who were they? Where were their parents? Would they be okay? He'd probably never know. Tomorrow he'd go back to loading cargo, and this would just become a story he sometimes told at bars. The time he pulled two alien kids out of a collapsing tunnel. People would buy him drinks and slap his back, and life would go on. He had no idea that his life had just changed forever. That by morning nothing would ever be the same again. That saving those two children would lead him on a journey beyond anything he could imagine. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight he just slept. Taesung woke to the sound of voices outside his apartment. Loud voices. Many voices. He groaned and rolled over, his whole body screaming in protest. Every muscle ached. His bandaged hands throbbed with pain. For a moment he forgot why he hurt so badly. Then yesterday's events came flooding back. The tunnel. The girls. The collapse. He dragged himself out of bed and stumbled to the window. What he saw made him freeze. There were at least 30 people gathered in the street below. Security officers in their dark uniforms. Medical personnel with their white coats. And aliens. So many aliens, all wearing clothes that looked expensive and important. Ships hovered nearby. Not the bulky cargo ships he was used to, but sleek vessels that seemed to glow with their own light. His door chimed. Not the normal chime, but an urgent, official-sounding tone. Taesung grabbed a shirt and pulled it on carefully, wincing as the fabric brushed against his injuries. He opened the door to find two security officers and a woman who made his breath catch. She was Velhari, like the two girls he'd saved. Her skin refracted light into soft blues and purples. She wore robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. But what struck him most were her eyes. They held a depth of emotion he couldn't name. Sadness. Gratitude. Something else entirely. "Are you Taesung?" she asked in perfect galactic common, though her voice had a musical quality to it, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Yes," he managed to say. "Is this about the girls? Are they okay?" The woman's expression softened. "They are recovering well, thanks to you. May I come in? We have much to discuss." Taesung stepped back, suddenly very aware of how small and plain his apartment was. He had one room that served as bedroom, kitchen, and living space. No decorations. Just furniture and work clothes. The woman didn't seem to notice or care. "My name is Haewon," she said, and something in the way the security officers stood straighter when she spoke told Taesung this was someone very important. "The children you saved yesterday are my daughters. Neela and Riva. I'm glad they're okay," Taesung said. "I was worried all night." Haewon studied him for a long moment. "You were worried, even though you don't know us. Even though saving them nearly killed you." She gestured to his bandaged hands. "The security reports say you refused treatment until my daughters were cared for first." Taesung shrugged, which sent pain shooting through his shoulders. They needed it more than me. They're just kids. Just kids, Haewon repeated softly. Do you know who I am, Taesung? He shook his head. Should I? One of the security officers made a choking sound, but Haewon held up a hand to silence him. I am the Velhari matriarch. Among my people, I am the leader of our entire species. Neela and Riva are not just my daughters. They are the future of the Velhari bloodline. Taesung felt his legs go weak. He sat down heavily on his bed. Oh, I didn't know. I just heard kids crying and you ran toward danger instead of away from it, Haewon finished. The security footage shows that 17 people passed by that tunnel's entrance after the collapse. They all heard the warnings. They all evacuated. Only you went inside. Someone had to help them. Yes, Haewon said. Someone did, but only one person actually did. She moved closer, her robes making no sound as she walked. Among my people, family is everything. It is the core of who we are. You saved not just 2 children, but my children. In doing so, you have created a debt that cannot be repaid with simple thanks or money. Taesung frowned. You don't owe me anything. I did what anyone would do. But they didn't, Haewon said firmly. You did. And now I must offer you the only reward worthy of such an act. I am invoking the life bond. The what? It is an ancient Velhari custom. When someone saves the life of a matriarch's children, they become bound to that family. It is the highest honor we can give. You would become my bonded companion. In human terms, my husband. You would be a father to Neela and Riva. You would join one of the most powerful families in the galaxy. For several seconds, Taesung couldn't speak. His brain refused to process what he was hearing. Finally, he found his voice. You want me to marry you? Because I pulled your kids out of a tunnel? Not just marry me. Join my family. Become part of the Velhari in a way no human ever has before. That's crazy, Taesung said. You don't even know me. I'm a cargo hauler. I live in a one-room apartment. I eat cheap noodles for dinner because they're on sale. You're the leader of your entire species. This doesn't make any sense. Haewon sat down beside him, and he noticed that even sitting she had a grace he could never hope to match. I know more about you than you think. Security ran background checks. I know you work 60-hour weeks and never complain. I know you send half your pay back to Earth to support your sister's children. I know that 3 months ago, you stopped a drunk Calverin from harassing a younger worker, even though Calverins are twice your size and you ended up in the medical bay. I know that you are exactly the kind of person I thought you were when I saw the footage of you carrying my daughters through fire. This is too much, Taesung said, standing up and pacing his small apartment. I can't just leave my life and become some kind of alien prince or whatever. I understand this is overwhelming, Haewon said. I am not asking for an immediate answer, but I want you to understand what refusing would mean. Among the Velhari, refusing a life bond is a grave insult. Not to me personally, but to the custom itself. It could create diplomatic problems between your species and mine. Taesung turned to face her. So I don't really have a choice. You always have a choice, Haewon said. But I hope you will choose to accept. Not because of duty or diplomacy, but because I believe you could be happy with us. Because my daughters already speak of you as their hero. Because sometimes the universe gives us opportunities we never expected, and the only question is whether we're brave enough to take them. There was a knock at the door. One of the security officers opened it, and 2 small figures rushed in. Neela and Riva, their legs bandaged but their eyes bright, ran straight to Taesung. They wrapped their small arms around his legs and looked up at him with such pure joy that his heart ached. Thank you, Neela said in broken galactic common. You saved us. You are brave. Riva nodded enthusiastically and held out a small crystalline object. Gift, she said, from us. For you. Taesung took the crystal and saw that it had been carved into a rough shape. A person carrying 2 children. They had made this for him. These little girls who didn't know him, who he'd met for just minutes during the worst moment of their lives. He looked at Haewon and saw understanding in her eyes. She knew what her daughters had just done. They had made the choice impossible. Can I have time to think? Taesung asked. This is the biggest decision of my life. Of course, Haewon said. Take 3 days. We will remain on the station. If you have questions, I will answer them. If you wish to spend time with Neela and Riva before deciding, that can be arranged. But in 3 days, I will need your answer. She stood, and the security officers moved to follow her. At the door, she paused and looked back. "One more thing, Taesung. My previous bonded, the father of my daughters, died saving our people from a disaster we could not prevent. I have not considered bonding again until now. I am not asking this lightly. I see in you something rare, a courage that comes not from training or duty, but from the heart. That is worth more than any title or wealth." Then she was gone, and Taesung was alone with a crystal carving and a decision that would change everything. The next 2 days were the strangest of Taesung's life. He tried to go to work, but his supervisor took one look at his bandaged hands and sent him home. The story of the rescue had spread through the station. Everywhere he went, people stared at him. Some wanted to shake his hand. Others just whispered as he passed by. On the second day, Haewon sent a message asking if he would like to visit Neela and Reva. He said yes before he could talk himself out of it. A security officer arrived to escort him to the Velhari ship docked at the station's diplomatic bay. Taesung had never been to that section before. It was where important people stayed, not cargo haulers. The Velhari ship was like nothing he had ever seen. The walls seemed alive, pulsing gently with soft light. The air smelled like flowers he couldn't name. Everything curved and flowed in ways that seemed impossible but felt natural. He wanted to touch everything and touch nothing at the same time. Haewon met him at the entrance. She wore simpler robes today, though they still looked more expensive than anything Taesung owned. "Thank you for coming," she said. "The girls have been asking about you constantly." She led him through corridors that seemed to shift and change, though he knew that was probably just his imagination. They entered a large room filled with soft cushions and strange plants that glowed gently. Neela and Reva were playing with floating lights that responded to their touch, giggling as the lights changed colors. When they saw Taesung, they both squealed and ran to him. He knelt down carefully, and they hugged him with surprising strength for such small creatures. "You came," Nyla said. "Mama said you might come, but we weren't sure." "I wanted to see how you were doing," Taesung said. "Does your leg still hurt?" Reva shook her head. "The doctors fixed it. Look." She jumped up and down to prove she was okay. All better now. For the next hour, Taesung played with the girls. They showed him their toys and tried to teach him simple words in their language. He was terrible at it. His tongue couldn't make the right sounds, but they found his attempts hilarious. Their laughter was infectious. He found himself smiling more than he had in months. Haewon watched from nearby, not interrupting but present. When the girls finally got tired and curled up on the cushions for a nap, she gestured for Taesung to follow her to a balcony overlooking the docking bay. "They love you already," Haewon said. "Children have good instincts about people." "They're amazing kids," Taesung said honestly. "You've raised them well." "I have tried. It has not been easy alone." She looked out at the ships coming and going. "My bonded, their father, died 2 years ago. There was an anomaly in space near our homeworld, a tear in reality itself. He went with a team to try to stabilize it. They succeeded, but he did not come back. The girls barely remember him. I'm sorry," Taesung said, because he didn't know what else to say. "He was brave like you. He saw people in danger and chose to act. Perhaps that is why I see him in you, even though you are nothing alike in other ways." She turned to face him. "Have you made your decision?" Taesung gripped the balcony railing. "I want to ask you something first. Why me? I know you said it's your custom, but you're the leader of your people. You could refuse your own custom if you wanted. You have that power. So why are you really doing this?" Haewon was quiet for a long moment. "You are right. I could refuse the custom, but I don't want to. When I saw the security footage of you in that tunnel, I saw something I thought I would never see again. I saw someone who didn't calculate the risks or think about the consequences. You just acted because it was right. That kind of person is rare, Taesung, in any species. But you don't love me. You don't even know me." "No," Haewon agreed. "I don't love you yet, but I respect you deeply, and I believe that respect can grow into something more. The Velhari do not bond for romantic love. We bond for partnership, for shared purpose, for family. Love often comes later, and when it does, it is stronger for having a foundation of respect. Taesung thought about his small apartment, his boring job, his quiet life. Then he thought about the look in Neela and Riva's eyes when they saw him, the way they called him their hero, the way they trusted him completely. What would my life be like? He asked. If I said yes? You would come with us to Thasara, our home world. You would live in my home, which is large and comfortable. You would be free to pursue whatever interests you, learn our technology, our culture, our language. You would be a father to my daughters and eventually, perhaps, to other children. You would stand beside me at official functions, represent both our peoples to the galaxy. You would never be just a cargo hauler again. What if I'm bad at it? What if I mess up? Then you will mess up, and we will fix it together. I am not expecting perfection, Taesung. I am expecting honesty, effort, and care. Those are things I believe you can give. He looked back through the window at the two sleeping girls. They looked peaceful, safe. They looked like they believed the universe was a good place because someone had come when they needed help. I have a sister on Earth, Taesung said. She has 3 kids. I send her money every month. If I do this, can I still help her? Of course. Family is family, whether by blood or by choice. We will make sure your sister has what she needs. And if someday I want to visit Earth, see where I came from, you will not be a prisoner. You will be my bonded, my partner. Your wishes will matter. Taesung took a deep breath. This is insane, completely insane. I'm a nobody from nowhere, and you're offering me a life I can't even imagine. There has to be a catch. The catch is that you will be watched constantly. Every mistake you make will be noted by those who doubt you. Every success will be attributed to luck by those who resent you. You will be judged more harshly than any, Velhari, because you are human, and many will believe humans are beneath us. You will face prejudice and challenges I cannot fully protect you from. That sounds terrible. It will be difficult, Haewon agreed. But you pulled my daughters from a collapsing tunnel while 17 others walked by. You carried them through fire. If you can do that, you can handle suspicious council members and cultural misunderstandings. Taesung laughed, surprising himself. You have a lot of faith in me. Yes, Haewon said simply. I do. He thought about his mother's words, about worth being measured in what you give away, not what you keep. He thought about those 17 people who had walked past the tunnel. He thought about all the times in his life he had taken the safe path, the easy choice. Maybe it was time to be brave in a different way. Okay, he said, and his voice only shook a little. I'll do it. I'll accept your life bond. Haewon's face transformed with a smile that made her whole being seem to glow brighter. You honor me and my family, Taesung. I promise you will not regret this choice. I'm already regretting it a little, he admitted. But I think that's normal. Very normal, she assured him. When we announce this, the entire galaxy will have opinions. Ignore most of them. Focus on what matters. The girls, our family, and building something good. They went back inside where Neela and Riva were waking up. When Haewon told them that Taesung was going to come live with them, going to be their new father, the girls' excitement was almost overwhelming. They jumped and cheered and hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. You'll teach us human games? Neela asked. And human songs? Riva added. And tell us stories about Earth? They said together. I'll do my best, Taesung promised, his throat tight with emotion. That night, he went back to his apartment and started packing. He didn't own much. A few clothes, some pictures, some books on his datapad. A whole life that fit into 2 bags. He sat on his bed and looked around the cramped room that had been his home for 5 years. Tomorrow he would board a Velhari ship and leave this life behind. Tomorrow, he would start a journey that terrified him. But when he closed his eyes, he saw those 2 little girls smiling at him. He saw Haewon's respect and hope. He saw a chance to be more than he had ever imagined. Sometimes the universe offered you a choice. Run away or run toward. For once in his life, Taesung chose to run toward the unknown. He hoped he was making the right choice. He hoped he was strong enough for what came next. He fell asleep holding the crystal carving the girls had made, their rough artwork of a hero carrying children to safety. Maybe that's what he would try to be. Not perfect, not extraordinary, just someone who showed up when it mattered. That seemed like enough. The journey to Thesara took 3 weeks. The Velhari ship traveled through space in ways Taesung couldn't begin to understand. Something about folding reality and taking shortcuts through dimensions. When he asked questions, the crew tried to explain, but the concepts were too far beyond his education. He just nodded and pretended to understand. His room on the ship was bigger than his entire apartment had been. The bed adjusted to his body automatically. The walls could display any image he wanted. A device provided any food he requested, though. He stuck mostly to human dishes because the Velhari food looked beautiful but tasted like flowers. Too many flowers. Neela and Riva visited him every day. They had decided that teaching him their language was their personal responsibility. They were terrible teachers, giggling whenever he mispronounced words and arguing about the right way to explain things. But slowly, painfully, he started to understand basic phrases. Thank you. Good morning. I am hungry. Where is the bathroom? The important things. He taught them human things in return. How to play rock, paper, scissors. How to make shadow puppets on the walls. Simple songs his mother had taught him when he was young. They loved everything about Earth culture, asking endless questions about things he had never thought about before. Why do humans shake hands? Do all humans have the same skin color? Is Earth really mostly water? Haewon watched these lessons from a distance, occasionally joining in. She was different on the ship than she had been on the station. More relaxed. She laughed at his terrible pronunciation and shared stories about her own childhood. Slowly, carefully, they were becoming comfortable with each other. One evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Haewon invited Taesung to walk through the ship's observation deck. The walls were transparent, showing the swirling colors of hyperspace outside. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Are you afraid? Haewon asked. Constantly, Taesung admitted. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out this was all a dream, or a mistake. It is neither, though I understand the feeling. When I became matriarch, I felt the same way. I was young, unprepared. I thought surely they had chosen wrong. But you were born into your role. I'm just some random guy who got lucky. Lucky? You call nearly dying in a tunnel collapse lucky? You know what I mean. Haewon turned to face him. Taesung, I want to tell you something. The life bond ceremony will happen when we reach Thesara. It is a sacred ritual that has been performed for thousands of years. You will wear special robes. You will speak vows in our language. Thousands will watch, either in person or through transmission. It will be overwhelming. That sounds horrible. She smiled. It will be. But I will be there beside you. And more importantly, so will Neela and Riva. They are part of the ceremony too. It is not just our bonding, but their acceptance of you as family. What do I have to do? Mostly stand where I tell you and repeat words you don't understand. The ceremony is more about symbolism than action. It represents the joining of 2 separate lives into one shared path. At the end, we will join hands and I will give you this. She held out a small crystal pendant on a delicate chain. It pulsed with soft light, the same color as her skin. This is a family bond stone. Every member of the Velhari matriarchal line wears one. It contains a piece of our genetic essence, a connection to our lineage. Once you wear it, you will be truly family. Taesung took the pendant carefully. It was warm to the touch and seemed to hum with energy. What if someone challenges this? Says I don't deserve it? Then they will challenge me, and I will remind them that I am matriarch, and my decisions are law. Her voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt. You worry too much about being worthy. You already proved your worth when you saved my children. Everything else is just details. I hope you're right. I am always right. It is one of the benefits of being matriarch. Taesung laughed, and some of his tension eased. Maybe this would work out. Maybe he could actually do this. He looked out at the swirling colors of hyperspace and tried to imagine what came next. A new world. A new family. A new life. When they finally arrived at the Sara, Taesung's breath caught in his throat. The planet hung in space like a jewel, covered in colors he had no names for. Cities glowed from the surface not with harsh artificial light, but with a soft, natural luminescence. The ship descended slowly, and he could see more details. Buildings that looked grown rather than built. Gardens floating in the air. Waterways that seemed to flow upward instead of down. "Welcome home," Haiwan said softly. They landed on a platform in the capital city. A massive crowd had gathered. Thousands of Velhari, all with their crystalline skin refracting light in different colors. They fell silent as the ship's door opened. Taesung felt every eye turned toward him as he stepped out, holding Neela and Riva's hands. A delegation of elderly Velhari waited at the end of a long pathway. They wore robes even more elaborate than Haiwan's, and their expressions ranged from curious to skeptical. These must be the council she had mentioned, the ones who would judge him. Haiwan walked slightly ahead, her posture perfect, her face composed. She looked every bit the leader she was. Taesung tried to copy her confidence but mostly just hoped he didn't trip and embarrass everyone. The eldest council member stepped forward. She had skin that refracted pure white light and eyes that seemed to see through him. "Matriarch Haiwan, you return with an unusual proposal, a human bonded. This has never been done before." "Many things have never been done before until they are," Haiwan replied calmly. "I invoke the life bond by ancient right. This human saved my daughters when no one else would. He carried them through fire and collapse. His worthiness is beyond question." Another council member spoke up, their voice sharp. "His bravery is acknowledged, but bravery does not equal suitability for bonding. He knows nothing of our ways, our culture, our responsibilities. How can he stand beside you as an equal? He will learn, as we all must learn. Or do you forget, Elder Kion, that you once said, 'I was too young to lead, yet here I stand and our people prosper'?" The council members exchanged glances. Taesung could feel the political tension in the air, forces pushing and pulling in ways he didn't fully understand. Then Neela stepped forward, her small voice cutting through the silence. "He saved us. He's nice. We want him to be our Appa." Riva nodded vigorously. "He's teaching us Earth songs, and he makes funny faces." The gathered crowd rippled with soft laughter. Even the stern council members seemed taken aback by the children's simple declaration. Elder Kion sighed. "The children have spoken, and the life bond is your right as matriarch. We will not oppose it. But know this, human, you will be watched closely. Any failure, any dishonor, will reflect on our matriarch and our people. I understand," Taesung said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'll do my best not to disappoint anyone." "See that you don't." The ceremony was scheduled for the following day. Taesung barely slept that night, too nervous and too overwhelmed by everything. The room they gave him was enormous, with windows overlooking a garden that glowed in the darkness. He stood at the window for hours trying to process that this was his life now. Morning came too quickly. Attendants arrived to help him prepare, dressing him in robes that were surprisingly comfortable despite looking impossibly formal. They tried to explain what would happen, but he understood maybe half of it. "Stand here, move there, repeat these words, don't trip." When he entered the ceremony hall, he almost turned and ran. Thousands of Velhari filled the space, and millions more were watching through holographic displays. The weight of all those eyes made his legs feel weak. But then he saw Neela and Riva standing near the altar, waving at him excitedly, and he found the strength to walk forward. Haiwan stood at the center, magnificent in ceremonial robes that seemed to be made of pure light. She smiled when she saw him, a small, private smile meant only for him. It helped more than she could know. The ceremony was long and filled with rituals he didn't understand. He repeated words phonetically, hoping he wasn't accidentally promising anything weird. He stood where they told him to stand and moved when they told him to move. At one point, Neela and Riva came forward and placed small flower wreaths on both his and Haiwan's heads, their role as witnesses and acceptors of the new family bond. Finally, near the end, Haiwan took his hands in hers. She spoke in Velhari, and this time he understood enough to catch the meaning, a promise to stand together, to support each other, to build a family based on respect and care. Then she placed the bondstone around his neck, and he felt a warmth spread through his chest. Not magic, not exactly, but something close. "You are family now," she said softly. "From this day forward, you are Velhari in spirit, if not in body." The crowd erupted in chiming sounds, their version of applause. It sounded like wind through crystal caves. Neela and Riva hugged him from both sides, and suddenly, the fear and nervousness didn't matter as much. He had a family. Strange, alien, impossible but real. That night there was a feast that lasted for hours. Taesung tried various foods, some good, some terrible, all interesting. People approached him carefully, curious about the human who had bonded with their matriarch. He answered their questions as best he could, trying to be friendly and respectful. 3 months passed in a blur of learning and mistakes. Taesung studied the Velhari language every day, slowly getting better at the musical tones and complex grammar. He learned their customs, though he still made embarrassing errors. He once accidentally proposed marriage to a council member's daughter because he used the wrong gesture. Haiwan had found that hilarious. Neela and Riva became his constant companions. They taught him about Thesara's wildlife, showed him their favorite places in the city, and insisted he attend all their school events. Being their father was easier than he expected. They were patient with his mistakes and seemed to find his human ways endlessly entertaining. His relationship with Haiwan was growing too. Not romantic love, not yet, but a deep respect and companionship. They ate breakfast together every morning, discussing plans for the day. They took evening walks through the gardens, talking about everything from politics to philosophy. She was brilliant and funny, and far more down-to-earth than her position suggested. He was starting to understand why her people loved her, but he also felt useless. Everyone around him had important jobs. Haiwan led the entire Velhari species. The council members managed different aspects of their civilization. Even the children went to school and learned valuable skills. Taesung just studied and tried not to embarrass anyone. He was a decoration, not a contributor. Then the news came. A mining colony on the planet Verac 7 had suffered a catastrophic accident. The main tunnel system had collapsed, trapping over 300 workers underground. Multiple species worked that colony: humans, Velhari, Draviks, and others. They needed help immediately. The council held an emergency meeting. Taesung sat in the back of the room, silent as always, listening to people much smarter than him discuss the problem. The Velhari had technology that could help. Advanced scanners to locate survivors, energy shields to stabilize the tunnels, medical equipment to treat the injured. But they needed someone to coordinate from inside the collapse zone, and that was the problem. "The environment is too harsh for our people," one council member explained. "The heat alone would damage our physiology. The toxic gases from the collapse would poison us within minutes. We need someone who can endure these conditions." "What about hiring mercenaries, other species who are more physically resilient?" Another suggested. "We've contacted several groups. None are willing to take the risk. The tunnel system is still collapsing. The chances of survival are low." Taesung stood up before he could think about it. Every head in the room turned toward him. He felt his face go red, but he pushed forward anyway. "I'll do it. I'll go coordinate from inside." Silence. Then Elder Kian spoke, his voice dripping with skepticism. You have no training in rescue operations. You barely understand our technology. You would die in there." "Maybe," Taesung agreed. "But I've been in a collapsing tunnel before. I know what it's like. And humans can handle heat and toxic gases better than Velhari. We're built tough. It's kind of our thing." "This is absurd," another council member said. "We cannot risk the matriarchs bonded on such a dangerous mission." The political implications of doing nothing are worse," Haiwan interrupted. Her voice was calm but firm. 300 beings are dying while we debate. If Taesung believes he can help, I trust his judgment. But matriarch, I said I trust his judgment. Prepare a transport immediately. Taesung, you will take a team of technicians with you. They will remain in safe zones while you coordinate from inside. You will wear our best protective gear and carry emergency equipment, and you will come back safely. That is an order. Taesung nodded. Yes, ma'am. 4 hours later, he was on a transport ship heading to Verak 7. The team with him consisted of 6 Velhari technicians who looked terrified of the human who had volunteered for a suicide mission. They treated him with a mixture of awe and confusion. The mining colony was chaos when they arrived. Families screaming for news of their loved ones. Medical teams overwhelmed with the injured who had made it out. Emergency crews standing around uselessly because no one could survive long enough inside to help. Taesung put on the protective suit the Velhari had designed. It would filter the air, regulate his temperature, and provide basic shielding. It wouldn't save him if the whole tunnel came down on his head, but it was better than nothing. He also carried a communication device so he could stay in contact with the technical team outside. The entrance to the collapsed section looked like the mouth of hell. Smoke poured out. The metal was twisted and glowing red in places. Taesung took a deep breath, thought about Neela and Riva waiting for him at home, and walked inside. The heat hit him immediately, even through the suit. It was like walking into an oven. The air was thick with dust and chemicals that made his eyes water. Every few minutes the tunnel would shake as another section collapsed somewhere deeper in. He could hear distant screaming. People were still alive down here. I'm inside, he reported through the communicator, starting to map the stable areas. For hours, Taesung moved through the tunnels, marking safe paths and locating pockets of survivors. The Velhari scanners worked perfectly, showing him where people were trapped. He coordinated with the technical team outside, directing rescue equipment to where it was needed most. When he found survivors, he helped dig them out personally, using his human strength to shift debris that would have been impossible for Velhari. One group of workers, 4 humans and 2 Draviks, were trapped behind a collapsed wall. The Velhari scanners said they had maybe an hour of air left. Taesung used a plasma cutter to burn through the debris, ignoring the way the heat made his suit scream warnings at him. When he finally broke through, the workers stared at him like he was a ghost. Who are you? One of them asked. Just a guy who's done this before. Come on, we need to move fast. He led them out through paths he had marked as safe, supporting the injured workers when they couldn't walk. Behind them, he heard the wall he had cut through collapse completely. Another minute and they would have been crushed. The rescue went on for 12 hours. Taesung lost track of time. His whole world became tunnels and heat and the voices of people who needed help. His suit's power was failing. His body was exhausted. But he kept going because people were still trapped, still alive, still hoping. The final group was the hardest. 6 miners trapped under a beam too heavy for Taesung to lift alone. The ceiling above them was cracking. Any minute it would come down and kill everyone. He tried to lever the beam up like he had before with Neela and Riva, but his strength was gone. His muscles wouldn't respond. Technical team, he said into the communicator, his voice raspy from the smoke. I need a lift assist at my location, now. The environment is too dangerous for our equipment. It won't survive the heat. I don't care if it survives. Just get it to me and get it to me now. 2 minutes later, a small anti-gravity device came floating through the tunnel. It was already starting to melt. Taesung grabbed it and attached it to the beam. The device whined in protest but lifted the weight. The miners scrambled free just as the ceiling began to fall. Taesung ran. He grabbed the slowest miner and dragged him along. Behind them, the entire section collapsed with a roar like thunder. They dove through the last doorway as fire and debris exploded out behind them. The emergency doors slammed shut, cutting off the destruction. For a long moment, everyone just lay there, coughing and bleeding and alive. Then the miners started laughing. The kind of hysterical laughter that comes when you survive something impossible. Taesung joined in, too exhausted to do anything else. When he finally emerged from the tunnels covered in soot and barely able to stand, the crowd outside erupted in cheers. The Velhari technical team rushed to support him. Medical scanners showed he was dehydrated, had several broken ribs, and had burns on his arms despite the suit. But he had helped save over 200 people. A human miner approached him, tears streaming down his face. You saved my daughter. She's only 16. You saved her when no one else could go in there. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. Just make sure she knows how much you love her. The trip back to Thessera took 2 days. Tae-sung slept most of the way, his body finally shutting down from exhaustion. When he woke, Haewon was sitting beside his bed holding his hand. "You're incredibly stupid," she said softly, "and incredibly brave. The council wants to give you a formal commendation. The rescued workers have been sending messages nonstop. The human government wants to meet with you. You have become rather famous. I just did what needed to be done." "Yes. Which is exactly what you did with my daughters. You see what needs to be done and you do it, regardless of the cost to yourself. Do you understand now why I chose you? Why I believed you belonged with us?" Tae-sung looked at her tired face and saw something he hadn't noticed before. She had been worried about him. Truly worried. This powerful being who led an entire species had been afraid for him. That meant something. "I think I'm starting to understand," he said. "Good. Now rest." Neela and Riva have been practicing a welcome home song. It is terrible, but 6 months after the Varric 7 rescue, Tae-sung's life had found a comfortable rhythm. He woke early with Neela and Riva, helped them prepare for school, then spent his morning studying Velhari technology and culture. Afternoons were for council meetings, where he now sat as an advisor rather than just an observer. Evenings belonged to his family, dinner, stories, and quiet conversations with Haewon. The council's attitude toward him had shifted. After Varric 7, they stopped seeing him as just the matriarch's unusual choice. Now they asked his opinion on matters involving other species, recognizing that his human perspective offered insights they lacked. He was becoming a bridge between two worlds, though he hadn't planned for it. Earth's government had reached out, wanting to establish better relations with the Velhari. For decades, humans and Velhari had been distant neighbors, respectful but not close, trading occasionally but never truly cooperating. Tae-sung's presence changed that. Suddenly there was a human voice in the highest levels of Velhari society. A delegation from Earth arrived on Thessera, led by Ambassador Park Ji-woo, a sharp woman in her 50s who reminded Tae-sung of his old supervisor, practical, direct, and slightly scary. She looked at him with obvious curiosity when they first met. "So you're the cargo hauler who married an alien queen," she said, no preamble. "I prefer to think of it as the cargo hauler who saved some kids and things got complicated." She laughed. "I like you. Let's talk about what we can do for each other. Earth wants access to Velhari technology, medicine especially. We're dying from diseases you cured centuries ago. In exchange, we can offer resources, manpower, and perspectives you might find valuable. I'm not really in charge of trade negotiations. No, but you're the matriarch's bonded. Your word carries weight. So I'm asking you, human to human, do you think we can trust them? Should Earth work with the Velhari?" Tae-sung thought about Haewon's integrity, about the care the Velhari showed, for all life, about how they had accepted him despite having every reason not to. "Yes," he said. "I trust them completely. They're not perfect, but they're honest and they care about doing what's right. If you work with them, do it with respect. Don't treat them as a resource to exploit. Fair enough? Will you help facilitate talks?" "I'll do what I can." The negotiations took weeks. Tae-sung found himself translating not just words but cultural contexts. When the Earth delegation thought the Velhari were being too slow and cautious, he explained that Velhari made decisions based on long-term consequences, not immediate benefits. When the Velhari Council worried that humans were too aggressive and unpredictable, he reminded them that human directness came from valuing time and efficiency, not disrespect. Slowly, carefully, an agreement took shape. Joint research stations, medical technology sharing, cultural exchange programs. It wasn't a perfect treaty, but it was a beginning. Ambassador Park looked exhausted but satisfied at the signing ceremony. "You did good work here," she told Tae-sung. "Earth owes you." "Earth doesn't owe me anything. I just helped some people talk to each other. But not everyone on Earth was happy. News channels ran stories about the treaty, and many people were angry. They accused Tae-sung of betraying humanity, of choosing aliens over his own kind. Social media was vicious. Death threats arrived daily. One particularly nasty commentator called him a traitor who had sold Earth out for an easy life with his alien girlfriend. Tae-sung tried not to let it bother him, but it hurt. He lay awake at night wondering if they were right. Had he abandoned his people? Was he so focused on his new life that he had forgotten where he came from? Hae-won found him one night on their private balcony, staring at the stars. She sat beside him without saying anything for a while. "You are troubled," she finally said. "People back on Earth think I'm a traitor. Maybe they're right. Do you believe you have betrayed Earth? I don't know. I'm living this incredible life while people back home are struggling. I'm helping build bridges, but some people don't want bridges. They want me to choose a side." "And which side would you choose?" Hae-won asked gently. "If you had to pick between Earth and Thessera, between humanity and Velhari, what would you do?" Tae-sung thought about it, about his sister's kids on Earth who now had better medicine because of the treaty, about Neela and Riva sleeping safely inside, about all the people on Varak 7 who were alive because he had been willing to risk himself. "I wouldn't choose," he said. "That's the point, isn't it? I'm not supposed to pick one over the other. I'm supposed to stand in the middle and show that both sides matter." "Yes," Hae-won said. "But standing in the middle means taking fire from both sides. Those on Earth who fear change will attack you. Those here who distrust humans will question you. It is the burden of bridge builders. Are you strong enough to bear it?" "I don't know, but I'll try." She took his hand. "That is all anyone can ask." The criticism from Earth continued, but Tae-sung stopped reading it. Instead, he focused on the positive changes happening. Human doctors training with Velhari healers. Velhari artists exhibiting work on Earth. Children from both species learning about each other through exchange programs. Every small connection mattered. Then the reports started coming in. A hostile force called the Krathan Dominion was expanding aggressively through nearby space. They were brutal conquerors who enslaved other species and stripped planets of resources. They were moving toward both human and Velhari territory, and neither species had encountered them before. The Velhari Council held emergency meetings. Intelligence suggested the Krathan would reach their space within a year. The humans were even closer to the threat, maybe 6 months. Neither species was prepared for war on this scale. Tae-sung sat in on a council meeting where they discussed options. The Velhari had powerful defensive technology but limited offensive capabilities. They were a peaceful species who rarely fought. The humans had military experience but lacked the advanced technology to fight a species as developed as the Krathan. Separately, both species would likely fall. Together they might have a chance. "We should propose a formal alliance," Tae-sung said, surprising himself by speaking up. "Not just a trade agreement, but actual military cooperation. Share technology, coordinate defenses, stand together." Elder Keon frowned. "The Velhari have never entered a military alliance with another species. It violates our principles of non-aggression. The Krathan won't care about your principles. They'll kill you all the same. This isn't about aggression, it's about survival." "The human speaks truth," another council member admitted reluctantly. "But would Earth even agree to such an alliance? Their government is fractured. Many oppose cooperation with us." "Then we convince them," Tae-sung said. "We show them what we showed each other, that working together makes both of us stronger. I'll testify before their leadership if I have to. I'll tell them what I've seen here, what I've learned, that you're worth trusting." Hae-won looked at him with something like pride. "Very well. We will send a proposal to Earth's government. Tae-sung will represent our position to the human leadership. We offer technology, defensive support, and strategic coordination. In exchange, we ask for their military expertise and their willingness to stand with us against the Krathan." The next few weeks were intense. Tae-sung traveled back to Earth for the first time since leaving. It felt strange seeing his home planet from space, strange walking streets that had once been familiar but now felt foreign. He had changed too much to fit in his old life anymore. The hearing before Earth's Global Council was broadcast live. Billions watched as Tae-sung, dressed in both human formal wear and his Velhari bondstone, stood before the assembled leaders of his species. I know many of you think I abandoned Earth, he began, that I chose comfort over duty. But I'm here to tell you that building bridges isn't abandonment. It's the hardest work I've ever done. I've lived with the Velhari for almost a year now. I've raised children with them, worked with them, learned from them, and I can tell you without hesitation, they are worth trusting. He described the treaty benefits, the medical advances saving human lives, the technology exchanges improving both societies, the cultural understanding that was growing between species. Then he described the Krathen threat and what it would mean if Earth and the Velhari faced it alone. We're stronger together, he said. Humans are stubborn and tough. We don't give up, ever. The Velhari are wise and advanced. They have technology that seems like magic. Combine those strengths and we become something the Krathen won't expect. Separately, we're targets. Together, we're a force. The vote was close. Many council members still opposed working with aliens, but enough agreed that the alliance was approved. Earth and the Velhari would stand together against the Krathen Dominion. When Tai Sung returned to Thesara, Neela and Riva tackled him the moment he walked through the door. "You did it!" Neela shouted. "Everyone's talking about your speech." "They said you were brave. I just told the truth. That is often the bravest thing one can do," Heywan said, embracing him. In that moment, something shifted between them. The respect they had built, the partnership they had formed, deepened into something more. He kissed her, awkwardly at first because he wasn't sure if Velhari. 2 years after accepting the life bond, Taesung stood on the bridge of a joint human-Velhari command ship, watching the tactical displays with a knot of anxiety in his stomach. The Krathen fleet had finally arrived in force. Hundreds of ships all built for war, all heading toward the defensive line that protected both human and Velhari space. He wasn't a military commander. He didn't belong on this bridge, but Admiral Kim Dae-jung, leading the human forces, had insisted he be here. "You're the symbol of this alliance," the Admiral had said. "The troops need to see you, need to remember why we're fighting together." Beside him stood Commander Ven, a Velhari tactical specialist whose crystalline features remained calm despite the approaching battle. "The formations look good," Ven said. "Your human ships provide the front defensive line. Our vessels support from range with precision weapons. It is a sound strategy. Strategy only matters if people follow it," Taesung replied. "We've only been training together for 8 months. That's not very long. It will have to be long enough." The Krathen fleet came into visual range, their ships dark and angular, built for intimidation as much as combat. They broadcast a message on all channels, demanding immediate surrender. Admiral Kim responded by opening fire. The battle began. Taesung watched as human ships charged forward, absorbing damage that would have destroyed Velhari vessels. They were tough, stubborn, refusing to break formation even as Krathen weapons tore into their hulls. Behind them, Velhari ships fired with devastating accuracy, their advanced targeting systems picking off Krathen vessels with surgical precision. It was working. The coordination they had practiced for months was holding. Human resilience and Velhari technology combined into something neither species could achieve alone. But the Krathen had more ships. For every one they lost, 2 more pressed forward. The battle turned into a grinding contest of attrition. Hours passed. Ships on both sides were destroyed. Taesung felt helpless, able only to watch as people died following a plan he had helped create. A Krathen battleship broke through the line, heading straight for the Velhari medical ship stationed at the rear. It was carrying wounded from both species, helpless to defend itself. Human fighters moved to intercept but wouldn't make it in time. "Someone has to evacuate that medical ship," Taesung said. "There's no time," Commander Ven replied. "The Krathen will be in firing range in 2 minutes." Taesung ran. He didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just ran to the hangar bay and jumped into the nearest small transport. He had been practicing piloting with Velhari instructors, though he was terrible at it. Today he would have to be good enough. He launched without clearance, ignoring the angry voices yelling at him over the communication system. The transport was fast but lightly armed. He pushed it to maximum speed, racing toward the medical ship as the Krathen battleship closed in. He arrived 30 seconds before the Krathen. 30 seconds to do something, anything. The medical ship couldn't move fast enough. Its engines were designed for stability, not speed. But maybe, just maybe, he could buy them time. Tae-sung positioned his transport between the medical ship and the Krathen battleship. His small vessel couldn't possibly stop that massive warship, but he activated the communication channel anyway. Krathen ship, this is Tae-sung, bonded of Matriarch Haiwan, representative of the Earth-Velhari Alliance. The ship behind me carries wounded, including your own people we've rescued from disabled vessels. It is protected under galactic warfare conventions. Attack it and you violate every rule of honorable combat. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice replied, harsh and grinding. You lie. We do not leave wounded for enemies to capture. Check your casualty lists. Check which ships we've boarded. We've been pulling your people out of wreckage and treating them alongside our own. That's what the Alliance does. We don't leave anyone to die if we can help them. A long pause. Then, you are the human who bonded with the Velhari matriarch. We have heard of you. The bridge builder. The fool who thinks different species can work together. Yeah, that's me. And today we're proving it works. Don't make me wrong. Another pause, even longer. Tae-sung could see human fighters arriving, ready to defend the medical ship if needed. But firing first would restart the violence, undo everything he was trying to do. The Krathen battleship changed course, veering away from the medical ship. You have courage, human. And you speak truth about your rescued prisoners. We are warriors, not murderers of the helpless. Today you live. But this battle is not over. The battleship rejoined the main Krathen fleet. Tae-sung let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Behind him, the medical ship began moving to a safer position. He'd done it. Somehow, impossibly, he'd done it. When he returned to the command ship, Admiral Kim looked like he wanted to yell and hug him at the same time. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. Don't ever do it again. Yes, sir. The battle continued for another 4 hours before the Krathen finally retreated. They had lost too many ships, taken too much damage. The Alliance had held, barely expensively, but they had held. The casualties were horrible. Thousands dead on both sides, hundreds of ships destroyed. But they had proven something important. Humans and Velhari could fight together effectively. The Krathen now knew that conquering this space would cost them dearly. After the battle, Tae-sung returned to Thesara. He was exhausted, traumatized by the violence he'd witnessed, desperate to see his family. Haiwan met him at the landing platform and he collapsed into her arms. I saw people die today, he said. So many people. And I couldn't stop it. No one person can stop war, but you helped save the medical ship. You showed mercy even in battle. That matters more than you know. Neela and Riva were waiting inside and they hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. They had grown in the past 2 years. Neela was taller now, her crystalline features beginning to show the elegant lines she'd have as an adult. Riva was still small but fiercely intelligent, always asking questions about everything. Did you fight the bad ships, Appa? Riva asked. Not really. I just talked to them, reminded them that some things matter more than fighting. You're good at that, Neela said wisely. Talking to people who don't understand each other, making them listen. That night, as Tae-sung put the girls to bed, he thought about how much his life had changed. 2 years ago, he had been a cargo hauler with no purpose beyond surviving day to day. Now he had daughters who loved him, a partner who respected him, and a role that mattered to billions of people. Later, alone with Haiwan, she shared news that made his heart skip. I am carrying a child, she said. Our child. Half human, half Velhari. The medical specialists say it is rare but possible. The baby will be unique. Tae-sung felt tears on his face before he realized he was crying. We're having a baby? Yes, are you happy? I'm terrified and happy and amazed all at once. Is that normal? She laughed. Very normal. I feel the same way. The pregnancy announcement spread quickly, becoming a symbol of the alliance itself. A human and Velhari having a child together proved that cooperation wasn't just political. It was personal and permanent. It gave people hope. 6 months later, their son was born. They named him Jae-min, a human name because Tae-sung wanted his son to carry part of Earth with him. The baby was beautiful. His skin a soft blend of human and Velhari features, refracting light gently like his mother but with the warm tones of his father. He was living proof that different species could create something new together. The Krathen launched 2 more attacks over the following year, but each time the alliance held. Human and Velhari forces fought side by side, learning from each other, becoming more effective with each battle. Eventually, the Krathen decided this territory wasn't worth the cost and withdrew to easier conquests elsewhere. The Alliance had survived its first great test. Now came the work of building something lasting. Joint colonies were established. Research stations studying both human and Velari science. Educational exchanges that sent children of both species to learn from each other. Trade networks that benefited everyone. 5 years after Taesung had accepted the life bond, the Velhari Council granted him a formal title, Bridge Keeper, one who connects worlds. It came with responsibilities and honors, but mostly it recognized what he had been doing all along, helping different people understand each other. On the day of the ceremony, Taesung stood before thousands of Velhari and humans with Haiwan beside him and his children around him. Neela and Riva, now teenagers, stood proud and tall. Jamin, 5 years old, held his father's hand and looked around with wide eyes at all the people. "I was just a cargo hauler," Taesung said during his acceptance speech. "I didn't plan any of this. I just pulled 2 kids out of a tunnel because no one else would. Everything that came after was just me trying to keep doing the right thing, even when I was scared or confused or way out of my depth." He looked at Haiwan, at his children, at the mixed crowd of humans and Velhari who had come together. "I learned that heroism isn't about being special or powerful. It's about showing up when it matters. It's about building connections instead of walls.